Hi everyone, it's Dr. Monica Mora here, and it is Monday at 4, and so it's time for us to talk about positive parenting. So thanks so much for joining me at this new time, and I am trying just to get the right spot here. I've got so many windows here, and with my glasses, I just keep seeing reflection, so I'm just going to have to make this work. But anyway, thanks for joining me at this new time, Monday at 4 o'clock. I hope we still are getting some folks to join us. Good, I see 3 people. Hi, everyone. 6, yay, we've got some people now finding us, so that's awesome. Don't forget to say hi and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. So what we're going to do today is follow our normal format, talk a little bit about some wins that you may have had over the course of the week. We'll do a quick review of what we covered last time we were together, and then we'll move forward on talking about working with, hi Molly, tantrums. So we're going to continue the conversation around tantrums and how do we deal with that type of behavior, and just to be more effective in our responses instead of reacting to them. So that's what we're going to focus on a little bit later. So as I mentioned, we always like to talk about, again, parenting wins, basically looking at things that happened over the course of the week that you feel pretty good about, that you feel happy about, how you approached your child or how you dealt with a particular behavior, something that might be going smoother for you than maybe in the previous weeks when this whole thing started, as we are now moving on. I think this is week 8, right? That at least here in the Pacific Northwest we're in. So things that might be going smoother, things that might be going easier, and just sharing those again in the comments if you would. It's nice for us to share our wins with each other and just see you recognize other people, but then also recognize that other people are in the same boat as we are, and we're not alone in this at all. Okay. And I have a parenting win that I'll share with you, but I'll share it with you a little bit as we go through the review. It kind of fits in there, so I'll share that with you. So if you have any parenting wins or things that please put those in the comments. That would be great to see. So last time we were together, we were talking about shifting our perspective and looking at behavior that we might in the past have typically labeled as bad behavior. We talked about taking off the label of good or bad and just looking at it as a form of communication. That most children, especially our younger children, but all children, can use behavior as a way of communicating their needs, their feelings, things that are going on with them that they really can't articulate for a variety of reasons. Language ability, just being self-aware of what's going on. They're not in that space. They're not in that developmental, they don't have that developmental ability yet. And so it comes out in behaviors, especially during times, in a time like this, that's really uncharted territory here, where they're dealing with the stress of being home 24/7, being under the same roof, not having freedoms, not having interactions with other people, and what that brings up for them. And so you're not going to have your 3-year-old or your 5-year-old or even your 7 or 8-year-old, even older, necessarily sit down to say to you, I'm feeling this way, or I'm upset because of this. Maybe some kids can, but not all kids can. And so again, it might come out in things such as, I'm not tired. I don't want to take a nap today. Or I don't like this food. We have the same food every single night. And those kinds of things, those are ways of children, again, letting out what is going on inward comes out. Right to us. We get to deal with them or to be the recipients of them. So we talked about, again, behavior as a form of communication and how it's really important to maybe take a step back and instead of reacting to it, try to keep our cool, try to keep our calm and figure out what are they trying to communicate with this particular behavior? What's going on underneath it that we're not seeing, that we're not hearing, okay? And the other thing is not taking that personal, not taking tantrums personal, not taking lashing out behavior as personal. It may feel like it. Most of the time, it will definitely feel like it. They're doing it to you, or this is something, again, responding, that is coming to you and I don't deserve that, right? That kind of feeling. But remembering that outlet, that release that they're having with this behavior is not personal. It's not being done to you, and really trying to keep your own emotions and your own feelings under control so that you again can respond effectively and not lash out and then make the whole situation escalate or more intense and make that behavior worse, right? Or the whole situation worse. And that again is not an easy thing to do, but it is a necessary thing to do. Okay, so talking about that. Now I'm going to share my parenting win with you because it fits into this situation. So some of you who've been following know that I have an 11-year-old daughter who is very social. She loves her friends. She loves going to school. She loves being with her teachers, and that's her space. She loves us too, and she loves being home, but it's been really challenging for her to be with us 24/7. And not have the freedom and her space separate from us. Okay. And so in combination with the fact of being 11, we've got puberty going on, we've got changing hormones, all of that is going on, right? Which makes her a little bit more emotional and a little bit more prickly at times, right? And so when she's feeling that way, being 11, sometimes she can tell me, Mom, I'm feeling really sad today, or I miss my friends today. But sometimes she doesn't recognize that's going on for her, and it comes out towards us. So she might be a little bit more, like I said, prickly. She might be a little bit more sassy. Her tone might be a little rough towards her brother. So that kind of thing. And so it's really important, and my parenting win has been to take a breath when she, has maybe kind of a sassy tone. Take a breath and realize all those other things that are going on for her, instead of kind of snapping to that, oh, she spoke to me that way, or that kind of thing, right? And then lashing back out at her, which is not helpful. Same thing, my husband and my son have also really have to try and work on the skill of recognizing that when she is maybe more abrupt in her response, that to take a step back and think about what else might be going on. Now, that doesn't mean that snappy or prickly behavior or the lashing out is okay. It just helps us stay in a calmer place so that we can then approach her and be more effective in our approach with her, right? And not escalate the situation. So, like I said, instead of me lashing out and saying, the way you just spoke right now was not okay, and that, and escalating it that way, taking a breath myself, and asking her, let's go in your room for a minute so we can talk. And then sitting down and calmly talking to her about, hey, what's going on? Did you hear how you just spoke to me? And do you, if you're feeling sad, I understand that you're missing your friends, but think about how when you speak to me, what that feels like, what that sounds like, and, how is that going to work as we're trying to be in this house together, right? And so that way, I'm approaching her calmly. I'm approaching her with compassion because I understand how she's feeling. And then she can also hear me a little bit better. Okay. So yes, she's 11, and that's my parenting win. But the same approach can be taken with younger kids. We're just not going to have a lot of discussion. But do you see what I'm saying? Instead of responding in anger and frustration, taking a breath, keeping myself cool, and trying to come from a place of compassion and figuring out what is going on with her. Okay, so that was my parenting win I wanted to share with you. And like I said, it's not always easy, right? It's not always easy when those behaviors kind of push our buttons there. But again, from seeing this as better purpose towards us, moving towards, again, understanding what's the communication, what is going on underneath that behavior. And then I don't react, but I can respond and be more effective in my parenting. So that's my win there that I'm going to share with you. The other thing, let's see, that we talked about, was just understanding that all children at some point are going to have tantrums, because tantrums are a normal part of child development. They just are. And so it doesn't mean that we're just going to go, oh, that's normal, and not do anything about it, but just recognizing that your child isn't a bad child. There's not something wrong with them. Just understanding something's going on there. We need to figure out what it is, and then we need to help guide them to learn I guess, more healthy or more appropriate or more effective ways of letting that stuff out, and teaching them the skills that they can use on their own to help, again, calm themselves down, deal with sadness, deal with loneliness, or whatever might be going on there. Okay, so that's, again, something that we talked about. We also spoke about how tracking these tantrums is going to be really helpful in terms of understanding what they're trying to communicate. So we spoke a little bit about paying attention to, are the tantrums happening at particular times of the week, particular times of the day? What's happening before the tantrums? Is there a situation or a particular trigger that might be setting your child off? And then the flip side is, how are these tantrums ending, right? Are you ending them by giving in, perhaps? Or are they getting what they want? Or are they ending the tantrums by just tiring themselves out? So understanding sort of the process of the tantrum, or the flow of the tantrum, and seeing if there's any rhyme or reason there that you can pick out. You might not have gotten that this first week, but the more that you can sort of pay attention to that, the more you can plan ahead, try to prevent some of this tantruming from happening, and think about what would be some really good strategies to use to deal with the tantrums when they come up, right? Because they will come up. It would be great to know if any of you had a chance to do that, if any of you had a chance to maybe monitor some of the tantrums, if you found out anything, if you any information about them came to light, that would be really great. Okay, so from that, I just wanted to talk about, I'm going to piggyback then on the plan. So once we can kind of get an idea about some of the circumstances around a tantrum, we can kind of think about some of this, especially with our little ones, or even sometimes with our older ones, have to do around more, I guess, easier fixes. So paying attention to, are they tired, right? Did they sleep well the night before? If they're real little, have they had their nap? Is it past their nap? Are they overstimulated? Have they been watching too much TV or media? And not had enough mommy or daddy time? Are they hungry? Is their blood sugar down? When's the last time they ate? Did they have a snack, right? We get busy in our day, things happen, but if we can, pay attention to, again, tiredness, hungry, stimulation, those kinds of things, those might be some quick, easy fixes that we can put into place to make sure that they're resting, make sure that they're eating, their blood sugars nice and level, so that we don't have these spikes. And I'm sharing this with you because it's no coincidence that typically tantrums tend to happen mid-morning, right? Mid to late morning, and also later afternoon, right before dinner. And what happens in those times of days, right? Blood sugar goes down. You tend to get tired, and it's not just our children that feel that way, right? That might be a time where you feel like, wow, I could really use an extra cup of coffee, or that chocolate sounds really good right now, right? Those are moments when you might need that little pick-me-up, right, to make it through the end of your day. And coincidentally, or not coincidentally, it also coincides with, if you look at assisted care facilities who are helping patients with Alzheimer's, those are the same types of days that Alzheimer's patients tend to get more irritable as well. Okay, so it's those, if you notice that tends to be the time when those tantrums are happening in your home, you really might want to look at, again, snacking, food, has it been consistent? Are they hungry? And also downtime, some rest in there, okay? Some other things that you can do, again, ahead of time that can help you with those prevention steps. A lot of those strategies that we talked about in the weeks before will help you. So thinking about activities that you can have ready to pull out in those moments that they're getting a little irritable, and pull in those activities, those new activities to get them engaged in something. Making sure that you are spending those good quality moments of time with them and giving them that positive attention when you can, so they don't need to resort to having tantrums or escalating in order to pull your attention towards them. Some other things are things that you notice that they might tend to get into or be touching that you don't want them. in to be touching or getting into, put those things away, put them up, put them out of eyesight, out of reach. Those are easy fixes so that you don't have to keep saying, no, don't stop, no, don't stop, that kind of thing. And some other things are going over the rules again. We talked about rules a couple of weeks ago. So sitting down with them and letting them know the expectations, and also ultimately praising positive behavior, praising the behavior that you like when you see it, letting them know that you see what they're doing and you really appreciate things. Now, we do want kids to be intrinsically motivated to do things, but we're talking about something different here. We're talking about making sure they get lots of attention for positive behaviors so that they're full up with that and they don't have to be resorting to other types of behaviors that we don't want to get that attention. Okay, so those are all things that we've talked about in the past that you can continue to do that will help prevent some of those tantruming behaviors. Now, when tantrums continue, or you might prevent some of them with these, but you still might get some tantrums. Okay, and that's okay. Like I said, that's par for the course when you have kids. But again, something that you can do is start thinking ahead of time. What might my plan be if tantrums come up? Now, if I can say a good thing about being quarantined right now is that you're having to deal with these tantrums within the safety of your home, underneath, your roof, without a lot of people watching, right? When quarantine is over, you will be able to maybe use some of these strategies when you're in public as well. But the good thing is that you'll be able to really try to feel comfortable handling these tantrums in the safety of your own home, where nobody is watching, where you feel like that social scrutiny can kind of make you get flustered and feel like it's more difficult to handle tantrums. But think about if you've been able to reflect on the time of day it happens or the situation that it happens, what could be some strategies to put in place ahead of time? So if a tantrum comes, you're ready, right? It doesn't catch you off guard. It doesn't send you going through the roof. You have a plan that you can say to yourself, okay, the tantrum's coming, here it is, but I've got this, right? I know what I'm going to do, and I've got this. I don't have to freak out. Okay. And what's the first thing? What is the first thing when you know the tantrum is coming that you can do that's going to be effective? What we've been talking about, which is keep yourself calm. Take a deep breath. Take a couple deep breaths. Say to yourself, keep cool. This isn't about you. Count to 10 if you need to, whatever it is to keep yourself calm and not escalated and not jumping in and matching that escalated behavior with your own escalated behavior. So like we talked about before, how every child is different. Every tantrum might be a little bit different. So you will have some tools in your pocket to be able to use for these tantrums, but know that you might need to adjust with every tantrum depending on the situation there. Okay, so some first things to do after you're able to keep yourself calm, the first you want to do is just to make sure your child is safe, in a safe spot, right? So make sure that they're not anywhere that they might, if they're flailing on the floor or something like that, that they're going to hurt themselves. Or if they're, let's say they're maybe a 3 or 4 year old and they have a younger sibling, a 1-year-old, 18-month-old, something like that, that they're not necessarily near the sibling. So they might accidentally be flailing and lash out and hit their siblings. So you really want to make sure your child is in a safe spot. And same thing with your property. You're damaging your property or your furnishings or things like that. You want to make sure that they're kind of in a safe location there. And if they're not, you want to make sure that you get in quickly and calmly and just move them to a space that's a little bit more contained, I guess, or safer. That doesn't mean taking them to their room and shutting them in their room and shutting the door. That's not what we want to do. But again, just making sure they're in a safe spot there. And then we want to move away. Okay, we don't want to be holding them or restraining them. We don't want to do that. just because, again, that sometimes that escalates behaviors, that can escalate a child, and that's not what we want. We don't want to associate your touch with them with this type of thing, like a restraining type of touch. We don't want to do that. And so remember, what we're trying to do here is just get them safe, get them to help them to learn the skills they need to be able to help themselves calm down and start regulating their behavior, and learning how to deal with that whole feeling of just being out of control and upset, right? That whole thing. And so after you've paused, you've taken a breath, you hopefully can get yourself to a place where you're going to be able to deal with this behavior with some empathy or some compassion. Then what you might be able to do is make a very short comment about what you think might be going on. So what I mean by that is, let's say that it's bath time and you've just asked your child to go have a bath, and instead of going and having their bath, they start, I don't want to have a bath, I don't need to have my bath right now, and just start having a whole tantrum about bath time. Okay, so once you know that they're in a safe place, you've taken your breath, what you can say to them is just some type of comment like, I hear that you're not wanting to have a bath right now. I know. And then, but it's bath time, so let's go have a bath, or something like that. So but again, it depends on the escalation. If they are through the roof escalated and they're screaming nonstop, they're not going to hear you. Okay. So obviously you're not going to make that statement in that moment. But if they're, crying and screaming, and they're able to kind of take a breath after that initial screaming and crying, you've taken a moment to calm yourself, you're standing nearby, making sure they're safe, but not engaging, not giving them a look, right, that's kind of threatening, or a look that's like, you better stop, that kind of thing. They may come down a little bit, right? And in that moment where it's gone from maybe 50 to maybe 20, but we're still not down to 10 or 0, you might want to be able to throw in that little comment, right? I know it's hard when you don't get your way, buddy. I know, right? And so again, you're communicating empathy. You're communicating, I know, right? I know this is hard, or I see what's going on, or I hear that you're not happy about this, right? Just a simple comment like that. We don't want to go into lecturing. We don't want to go on and on and on and on and on either, because that can backfire and escalate the situation again. So a very short statement to them that kind of communicates to them that right? You understand what's going on, right? If you have some kind of an idea. Now, with younger kids, sometimes you can piggyback a distraction or a redirection onto the back of that comment. So for the bathtub situation, you might be able to say something like, okay, so I hear you. You don't want to have a bath right now. I know bath times aren't your favorite thing, but what about Mr. Duck? Maybe Mr. Duck wants to have a bath with you today. What about that? Let's try. And we've got Mr. Duck, and maybe that might be like intriguing to them to say, whoa, Mr. Duck having a bath. I never thought about that. Let's go, right? Or you might be able to say, what's the other one I said? Oh, I know it's really hard when you don't get your way and you really wanted to play with that toy right now that sister's using. How about we do this game, you and I together, okay? Or what about this toy here? How about that? Looks like fun. So we're talking about with younger kids, we might be able to, with that empathy and that short statement, acknowledging how they're feeling, and then tagging on that redirection. Sometimes that's enough to kind of get that tantrum down, get that emotion down, get them engaged in something else, get them to follow the instruction that you've given, right? And then once they're engaged in something, or once they've jumped in the tub with Mr. Duck, we can highlight the positive there by saying, look how nicely you got in the tub with Mr. Duck. That's a good job, bud. Or I like how you're playing with that new puzzle there. That looks like a lot of fun. So we've taken that attention and we put it back onto that positive behavior there, okay? Now, really the redirection and that, or that distraction tends to happen best with our younger children. Okay. It doesn't work for all children, but for a lot of children, they do respond to that. And so that's something that you might want to try. Another thing to do is we talked about thinking about some calming techniques. So remember, we need from the time they're little on up, as parents, we really want to be helping our children learn these calming strategies, right? We call this emotional self-regulation. This is a critical life skill that our kids need to learn. We all need to learn it, right? So like we said before, throughout life, there are going to be times where they don't get their way or something happens that they don't like. And so we need, as parents, to help them learn, what do we do when that happens? Okay. And so tantruming is part of that. So something to do would be before tantrums happen, at a time, at another point in the day where things are going well, is to talk to them a little bit about what do we do when we feel really sad? Or what are some things we can do when we feel really angry? What do we do with that? And so think and have a conversation with them. It doesn't matter if they're 3 or 6 or 10. Talk to them about, here are some ideas. These are some things that mommy does. What do you think you could do? What could help you feel better? Or you can offer some suggestions, right? You can talk about getting a pillow and hugging it real tight, or going outside and kicking that ball, or singing a song, right? Or counting from 10 to 1 backwards. So what different strategies that you can come up with, and you can experiment. Use the Too Cool for School discussion page to ask other parents what they do, or what kind of strategies have they talked to their kids about in terms of calming their self down, using some of those mindfulness techniques that Renee has been talking about. Could be a good opportunity at this point, right? And using some of those exercises. So those kinds of things, but it needs to happen at a time before the tantrum, right? And so then when the tantrums are happening, again, once we've gotten to a point where they've come down a little bit, you may be able to make a cue or a prompt to them about, hey, remember those things we talked about when you're angry? That you can do? How about you try to practice those deep breaths that we talked about, right? Or where's the pillow that you can squeeze right now? Or, what about, let's do the counting together. I'll count with you, right? So thinking again about the age of your child and about their ability and what you've talked about, that is a way to help them connect. Oh yeah, we talked about the breathing when I'm angry, and I'm angry right now, and so I'll try my breathing right now, right? And then when you see them practicing that breathing, being able to say, look at you, you're using your breathing, that's really good. Not too much. We want to give them some space so that they can calm themselves, right? It's about helping them learn the skills, right, to calm themselves. But we will comment on it and really give them some encouragement for being able to use it, right? So this is going to take some time. The first couple times that you implement these, you might feel stumbling through them. You might feel a little bumpy as you go through it. Your children might not respond 100% yet, but remember, this is a process. The more that you practice these strategies, the more that you work through them, the easier it gets. And the more consistent you are in using them, the more familiar your children get to you using them, right? And then they begin to work when you're more consistent in putting them into play, okay? And also, the easier it gets for you to stay in a place of calm when you're confronted with these escalated behaviors, instead of you too going into that escalated place, which doesn't work, right? There are some other things I was going to talk about in terms of using your clear, calm instructions and ignoring some of the behavior that you don't want, right? Ignoring the crying out or the stomping of the feet, and commenting on the positive that you do want. So I guess we'll just do part 3 next week. Next Monday at 4, we'll continue the conversation. So this week, I would just suggest to you to, again, continue to practice staying calm in the face of these escalated behaviors, trying to approach them from a place of understanding what might be going on and how can I use my empathy or compassion to comment on that. And then how can I get my child to either be redirected to something else or give them that cue to begin to use some calming strategies. Next week, we'll talk about, again, this idea of not paying attention to some of that escalated behavior, but again, commenting on the positive, which sounds confusing if we're talking about a tantrum, but it'll make more sense once we talk about it next week. We'll also be talking about what we call, I guess you could say it's a version of a timeout, but I don't like to use the word timeout because a lot of people bristle at that. It has a negative connotation there, but it is sort of taking a break time or calming down time. We all take it. We all do that when we're feeling upset or angry about something. We need a moment, right, to get ourselves back together. And that's really what we're trying to help our children learn. And so we'll talk about how do we do that, right? How do we do that in a way that feels supportive and productive, and it doesn't feel like we're punishing them, right? And we don't inadvertently maybe hurt them in the process. And I don't mean physically hurt them, but just maybe emotionally. Okay. Now remember, with all of these kind of strategies that I'm talking about, we're not downplaying some of the behavior that can come out of these tantrums or some of the harmful or hurtful behaviors. But by doing all of these things, like our focus is teaching our children the more productive or more beneficial skills that they'll need to learn as a result of handling the tantrums versus just taking a hard punitive approach, which really just teaches them to be afraid or to keep things bottled up, or to shut down or to hide things or to be sneaky, which is what we just don't want that. At least I don't want that. And I'm pretty sure many of you don't want that either. So this time has flown by again for me. I hope that this information has been helpful to you. I'll be checking in throughout the week. So if you have any questions after you've watched this video, feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll make sure to check and respond back to you. For those of you that haven't seen some of the previous videos, feel free to go back under our videos section. We've got all our videos under there. You can go under the units with Positive Parenting with Dr. Monica, and they're listed under there as well. And pick up some of the tips from some of the other strategies that can be helpful in dealing with these tantruming behaviors. As I mentioned, it's all a process. It all works together. And I think that's probably all I've got for you for today. My time is up. So thanks again for joining me. I will be here with you next Monday at 4. And you can also go to drmonicamora.com for more information and support. So hope you all have a great week. Take care. Bye.